Recording.
Hi there, I'm Patrick Donegan with HardenStance. I'm here with David Rupprecht. David is the CEO of Montsecure. How are you doing, David? Good to see you.
Hi, I'm good. How are you doing?
Very well indeed. We are here to talk about NESAS, the GSMA's Network Equipment Security Assurance Scheme. And I happen to know that there are not many people who know more about NESAS testing than David. That's because I've been speaking with him, and he's going to share some of his experience and thoughts and ideas on the NESAS testing specs and how they're being implemented over the course of the next few minutes. David, Montsecure is a very new company. Tell us a little bit about the company and what it's doing.
Perfect. Yeah, so Montsecure has a strong background in research. So during my research time at university, we found many vulnerabilities in mobile networks, starting from the specification, implementation, and configuration. So for example, we found vulnerabilities in the specification that allow users to or users be redirected to fraudulent websites because we are missing integrity protection on the user plane. So we were basically here responsible for making integrity protection part of the 5G specification. In the implementation, we found vulnerabilities in the base stations where we can eavesdrop phone calls, which shouldn't happen. And in the configuration, we found also like misconfigured network that allowed to impersonalize people and all this kind of stuff. So, and with this research, we were like thinking, okay, what can we do after research, and we can continue with that. But we thought our skill set is needed in the industry. And so we made this company, Montsecure, and made the mission to make mobile network security accessible. And we focus here on training. And so basically giving all this knowledge that we have to the industry and tooling where we can test and assess networks on scale. So our research has contributed also to the NESA standard or underlying SCAS test cases, and we will come to that later. And also research because we have still a strong research background. So the question is, what is coming with 6G? What is coming when we put our base stations on satellites? Does it change anything with the attacker model, attack impact? So we are participating actively in the research to drive the industry, in a good direction so we have more secure networks, right? So that's our mission here.
Very good. So you're based in Germany, and it seems to me, and I think many people, that Germany is pretty much the world's leading market in terms of NESAS adoption. How far ahead is Germany compared with other countries in terms of adopting and implementing NESAS? And what are the sort of deadlines for implementation and compliance?
Yeah. Yeah, I think Germany is in Europe one of the leading countries. So within, like by 2026, all German public network operators are only allowed to have deployed or are only allowed to have certified network equipment in their network. So that's less than 40 weeks. So that's a tough deadline. Um, and I think that's not only NESAS. So the spectrum is much broader. It's all so NESAS is only for the 3GPP defined network component, but there are also other network components in the network that have different other certification schemes. But for now, we are just focusing on NESAS to get that ready by 2026. And so, yeah, I think there we are basically leading, and we can learn a lot of the German scheme. So sometimes in this interview, I will also refer to the NESA CCSGI, which stands for German implementation, but it's
Okay.
basically NESAs with some German bureaucracy added to that.
Okay, very
And
nice.
um, but in the underlying procedure, it's quite the same. So you have network equipment that needs to be tested. So yeah,
Would it be
and
fair to say that if the deadline is Jan 26, would it be fair to say that there's an element of panic coming into some of the operator environments?
If you look at the list of certified network, there's only one network component certified until now,
One network
and
component, sorry, yeah.
yeah, more product.
Which
But
one is
this
that?
is that's the SETI base station, and that was certified, I think, 2 years back. So it was the pilot certification. So in the end, or actually there's no network component certified on the market that is allowed to be deployed by 2026. So yeah, kind of panic. I guess market is moving, but as always with requirements based on laws, I think the market is adapting, trying to negotiate. So there was even a statement by the Bitkom which tried to delay the deadline. So
The
that's
Betcom is the regulator in Germany, yes?
no, Bitkom is like an industry consortium for communication
Ah, right.
networks.
Okay.
So they try to basically push the deadline a bit and renegotiate what needs to be actually certified. So we can link those sources, I think, under the video. So yeah, bit of panic, or not panic, but are we going to make the deadline? But yeah, that's always the case in the security.
But it sounds like, if Germany is out in the lead and other countries are nowhere near where Germany is, it does sound like the adoption of NESAS is very slow.
I think the German, yes. So that this NISA CCSGI part where you have this extra bureaucracy. I think the main difference, and then there's a public or the GSMA NISAs, right? And there are more products listed on the GSMA NISAs. Still, they are not. They are mostly base stations or
Right.
basebands and other products, not 5G core network products, which are the scope of the NISA CCSGI.
Right.
And there's also a big main difference between NISAs and NISA CCSGI. So in NISAs, that's like an auditing scheme. You can pass, or you can fail certain test cases, or you can be non-compliant, and the vendor itself can decide if he would like to take this product, even if it has a certain failure or not. With the certification scheme, you are not allowed to fail at all, right? And this is the main big difference. So, for example, some test case that might fail for the product, the vendor can take, or the MNO can say, "Oh, I take that risk in," and however, it's not allowed based on the German law to take that equipment and even it failing. Yeah.
Okay. Let's look
So,
then specifically
so
at some of the requirements of the German market. What do the requirements expressly state for stakeholders in the German market?
yeah, and so it basically states that all public MNOs are only allowed to deploy certified network equipment by 2026. And I already, yeah, so and there are different schemes, as I already mentioned. And NISA CCSGI or NISA is this one scheme. And here, this is on the one side, they need to deploy this equipment, but on the other side, they are also audited on a regular way, or on a regular basis to see if their network is compliant to the certification requirement. But in the end, it's a product certification that the MNO needs to deploy.
So it sounds then from what you're describing as though it is the German government or the NESAS requirements speak to the requirement to assure the security of the product rather than the network. Is that the case? And if it is, presumably that has some pretty substantial limitations from an operational perspective.
Yes, that's true. So it's really the law basically requires the MNO to only deploy certified network equipment, and then this this basically shifts the responsibility from the MNO to the
To the
vendor,
vendor.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, to the vendor. And um, but in the end, what we see also in the market that the product is or when this law were written or those laws were written, they had assumed that the product is basically a black box that is once manufactured, then put in the operator's network and configured once, and then it runs forever and until it's ripped and replaced, right?
Right.
And this is obviously not anymore the case. So you have an ongoing update cycles, reconfiguration of the network, and so on. So in the end, what the certification does is says, okay, the product can be secure, but it's not actually is secure deployed, right? And this has to do, I think, also with this current deployment scenarios where you have like an underlying cloud system and all network functions are in a cloud, and for this cloud responsible, so this underlying layer is the MNO, and the configuration is the MNO responsible. But for the container, it's actually, or the containerized platform is the vendor responsible. So, and this difference from this black box to this hybrid thing where you have the Kubernetes, or mostly Kubernetes platform, and then the container as a product, that's not reflected in this law, and that makes it really difficult to define what is the actual product, what is certified, and who is responsible for which part. And by the certification, they basically say, yeah, you need to certify everything down to the hardware layer, and but that's not in the responsibility of the vendor anymore, because the MNO is responsible for that. So that's a big problem actually, when it comes to make this operational, and getting this certification done. And this is the biggest challenge we currently face, I think, in the certification.
Yeah, I mean, so it sounds like an example of, compliance driving behaviors which might appear theoretically to be good behaviors, but actually are not necessarily all that helpful at all.
Yeah, I think the intention is good. I think if you work in telco security and telco industry, we have vulnerabilities. We just talked about like fraud calls and SS7 or interconnection things are exploited. I mean, even in those research, we found those misconfigured networks and implementations. So the intention is good. And But the question is, how can we make it? How can we secure those network efficiently, right?
Yeah,
And
at an
what
operational
is
level.
and on an operational level? Because
Hmm.
in the end, what counts is the network is securely deployed, and not it can be securely deployed, right? So and I think this is where we should go, where we maybe have a multi-step process, being lightweight for each of those parties, that they can and be in the responsible domain of those parties, instead of saying, hey, you produce a black box, do certify that, and not considering the current level of
Yeah.
yeah,
So, I
of
mean, to
the
your
legal
to your
deployment.
point, you say this is where we should go. Better operational security is where we would go. I mean, that's hardly a controversial statement to make. It's ultimately everything ultimately boils down to high levels of operational security. But here's my question then: in terms of how do we get to operational security, better operational security, is it even appropriate to think of NESAS being the right agency for specifying operational security, or actually should NESAS just be left to specifying product security, and should operational security be something that operators look to other guidance for, or develop the best guidance they can themselves based on multiple sources? Is NESAS necessarily, do we need further iterations of NESAS to catch up on the operational side, or actually are we better off leaving NESAS be, just leave it where it is, and let the operational security folks sort that out themselves through other agencies?
No, I think NESAS is good, in
Okay.
the sense, if you look at the product security and then have a clear define what is a product. So basically, if you say the product is a container that runs in an operational environment, then you just need to apply NESAS for this container, and make it lightweight also for the vendor to test against those requirements, right? And on the other side, we need also operational environment where we can say, okay, we have like a NESAS testing or NESAS certification on the operational environment. So I think, so also making this responsible for each party, where is its domain and security responsibility. And I think GSMA can also help here. I mean, they have the guidance guidelines in their FS documents. but it must be clearly, if it's enforced in law, um, especially in the German market, then we should consider this split, right? And NESAS by itself allows that, but the German government agency doesn't allow that in the sense of, hey, you have a product. And I think if we look for EU 5G, and this is something we should definitely improve on and iterate over.
When you say
And
EU5G, do you mean the security toolbox?
I mean this. So in either, it's also considered that we will have 5G certification network, network equipment certification on a European level. Um, and so
Oh, so
there's a working
if
group.
it's tested in one country, it can be deployed in another country.
Yes,
Right.
yeah. And so I think we can take Germany as an example and then say, okay, what was going bad and what are the disadvantages and advantages of the German scheme, NISA CCSGI. And if we implement something on the European Union level, then we should definitely consider, let's have a small lightweight product certification, maybe on this containerized, but a larger testing or also a testing and certification, not maybe a certification, but more like an auditing, where you can consider the operational environment. So is the Kubernetes cluster secure and all those things? I completely trust that the MNOs already do that to a certain kind of extent, right? But then the question is, can we have the same level of it, right? And if we look at the operational, and then I think here the GSMA maybe can give also guidelines. I think that's not responsibility of the GSMA to say, hey, that's how you securely configure Kubernetes cluster, but at least point to other resources and have a guideline here. I think that's what we can do also, and then maybe enforce it with a scheme on the European level that we have a secure network overall in the European Union. Yeah.
Right. Very good. Well, David, it sounds like you're going to be very, very busy in Germany for the remainder of the year, possibly in other markets as well. Thanks so much for the update. Thanks so much for sharing what you do, and good luck with your company.
Thank you. Have a great day and see you soon.
You too.